Thanks everyone for tuning in here. I know it's been kind of, a crazy start to 2020 here, and sad that we are not in person. But still, charging ahead as Ashoka changemakers do, given the resources we have. I, don't want to bore anyone, given that you probably will hear these at every session. But, like every session, we will be following, the kind of ground rules for the conference of practicing authenticity, creating a sense of belonging, fostering optimism and inclusion, being generous with each other, and having courageous and respectful conversations in this session today. So with that, this is, just so you know where you are, the models for paid student internships session. Internships are often free and viewed as a rite of passage for students, but presenters in this session are flipping that model on its head and will share diverse models for structuring paid internships and other opportunities and best practices today for securing funding. We have, a couple of great folks on the panel today to share their insights and expertise with internship programs. And they will share more about themselves momentarily here. But just briefly, we have Erin Miller, who is the Associate Managing Director at the Ballard Center for Social Impact at Brigham Young University. Sadibou Celia is the Associate Director of the Social Innovation Collaboratory at the Gabelli School of Business at Fordham University. And Alan Yu is the Program Manager at Singapore Management University. We will have time at the end for some questions, hopefully, if anyone has those. So feel free to kind of pop things in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on it and make sure that we are doing our best to be attentive and making this session what everyone would like it to be as well as we go. So maybe Erin, if you want to kick us off, just give a little background about yourself and your internship program, and we'll kind of just go around the room quick with that.
Great, and thanks, Ian, for leading us on this, and Carly for all your help. Like Ian said, I'm at BYU. Our Social Impact Center, the Ballard Center, is housed in our business school, like is pretty common. I'm going to share my screen to kind of talk a little bit about the way we do internships. Okay, so this is our Ballard Center website. If any of you want to go to it later, if any of this is helpful to you for reference later, the easiest way to get to our website is just ballardcenter.byu.edu. It redirects to the Marriott School website, but that URL will get you there. So we have a pretty flexible process of providing internship opportunities for students. There are ways we prioritize. We obviously don't have funding. So we generally fund summer experiences for students that are working with high quality social impact organizations. Because not all of our students, because we don't have enough funding to help all of our students, we have a process for prioritizing which summer experiences get funding, and that's what this reflects here. And so you can find this if you go to resources and then grants at our website. But basically, to briefly review it, we essentially, so all of our grants are meant to pay for travel and living expenses. A lot of our students have summer opportunities that don't necessarily, or that are unpaid, but we know will be great resume builders and fantastic experiences for them. So we subsidize those experiences. Our grants typically range from anywhere from as little as $500 because they just need help with a plane ticket to up to $3,000 to $4,000. That's sort of at the high end of what we'll fund typically for a summer experience. But just to kind of give a sense of how we do it, we prioritize it based on two scores. One of them is what we call our person score, and that is a reflection of how involved the student is with our Ballard Center programs. We have about 25 different programs that run in the Ballard Center and have close to 3,000 students every year who participate in those programs. And so what we do is we try to prioritize grant money to students that are deeply engaged with us. One, it means that they've sort of learned the way we view social impact, and they're going to be taking that onto their internships. And two, we feel like it makes more sense to reward the students who have more deeply engaged with us over the students who maybe just heard about us and really only want money. And so what we do is we have the students score themselves on these measures, but we give some guidelines to give a sense of how they should score themselves based on their involvement with the Ballard Center. And so that's what this reflects here. And then the second sort of attribute that we look at is what we call an experience score. And this is because we strongly prefer that our students are going to have internship experiences with high quality social impact organizations. And part of the way that we ensure that, and we do this for almost all of our partners that we work with, for our on-campus internships, for sending students out for internships, any consulting work that our students do, we sort of have a filtering mechanism that we use to make sure that the organizations are high quality. And so to do that, we'll prefer organizations that have been recognized by Ashoka, Skoll, Schwab, Malago, Peary Foundation, Acumen, Echoing Green. We have an award called the Social Innovator of the Year. We also have our Social Venture Academy that produces student ventures that have a social impact. And basically, typically students only get an opportunity for funding if they're going to work with one of these kinds of organizations. We do have travel restrictions because BYU only allows students to travel sort of travel with BYU assistance to certain countries where there's less of a risk to travel. And then when students decide to apply for a grant, they just click here and that takes them to a Qualtrics survey where they fill out all that information. And so essentially what happens is we just review these applications throughout each semester. Most of them obviously are applications for summer experiences, and that kind of covers our process. So
great. Alan or Sidibu, whoever would like to go next.
Sure, I can go next. Okay, great. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about, my name is Alan. I'm a program manager at the Lian Center for Social Innovation at Singapore Management University. Lian Center for Social Innovation is the secretariat for the Ashoka U Changemaker Campus program at Singapore Management University. And we are the first designated changemaker campus in Asia and one of 2 Ashoka campuses in Asia. A little bit about the Lian Center before I proceed. The Lian Center is an institute that aims to promote social innovation through research and capacity building work. So we do events, we organize workshops and classes. We have a research team that focuses on the unmet needs of Singapore and the ASEAN region. And we also highlight innovations and social innovation through our magazine, Social Space. We also have a paid internship program that is designed to incentivize students to pursue internships in social enterprise and social sector organizations. So I'm going to just show you a few pictures here. So we have 2 foundations that we work with. One of them is the Tan Chin Tuan Foundation, and they provide opportunities for students to do internships with social sector organizations. So you can see some pictures of some of our students doing work with organizations that do work with at-risk youth, disabilities, food banks. And then we also have another foundation, it's called the DBS Foundation, which is a foundation that really focuses and emphasizes social enterprise. And we have students that also intern at social enterprises. A question is why do we want to provide these sorts of opportunities? Is because we at the Lian Center see the internship as an opportunity for students to try something new, explore something. And we want people to explore pathways to become change makers. And we feel that, social impact work at either social enterprises or at social service organizations is a wonderful way to help people figure out how to engage in change making professionally. However, we understand that there are limitations because social enterprises as well as social service organizations lack capital. And so they often don't have money to fund students. And so the whole purpose of this program is to provide an opportunity for a student to do something different rather than work at a typical corporation in Singapore like DBS Bank or Singapore Airlines or some sort of multinational corporation in Facebook. They have the opportunity to do something that is potentially meaningfully impactful to them. Our internships provide a stipend of about 2,500 Singapore dollars for 10 weeks of work. And so it's very comparable to the type, to how much a student would be paid if they were to do a more conventional sort of internship. And at the end of their experiences, we invite them to give presentations. And so I'm just showing you some screenshots of content that came from slide decks of students. They had to go up and they had to present on some of the projects. So this is Homage, which is an organization that is designed to provide comprehensive healthcare to the elderly. This individual did a little bit of market research and other forms of marketing work. We have another individual that worked for this social organization, CARE, and she describes some of the things that she has organized. In addition to the 2,500, those students that work with social service organizations also have an additional $400 in funds to do some of their activities, because we don't want students not to be able to do certain things because the organization does not have budget. So we allow them to, we give $400 to their organization so they can do things that are fun for them. They may do a videography project, they may launch a fundraising event, so they can do various things with the additional $400. Again, these are going to be very, these are generally going to be very project-based sorts of opportunities, and mostly in marketing, research, and business development, although we have some sorts of opportunities that are also more operational, like accounting. So that in a nutshell is a basic description of our internship programs with social enterprises and social sector organizations. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Sadibu?
So first, I would like to thank every one of you for being here and also for giving me the opportunity to share the work that we are doing at Fordham University. So I'm going to also share quickly my screen just to kind of give you a brief overview of what we do and how we've also organized ourselves here at Fordham. So the first screen I'm going to share is just somewhat of our model. So as you know, Fordham is a Jesuit institution, and as a Jesuit institution, advancing higher education as a force for social purpose is, one of the DNA of, Jesuit institutions. And this is something that Fordham really believe in, and hence the reason why we are naturally a change-making campus. So the way we've also organized our social innovation, engagement within the university is through the Fordham Social Innovation Collaboratory. So the collaboratory essentially is very student-driven. And what we do, we have student teams. But then the student teams are focused in three models. One, we have the methodology, forms, and disseminations. And that is these teams on the left, storytelling, systems thinking, equity, inclusion, and design for social impact. So in each of these categories, we have students working like a project, and it's run by students. And then we also have leaders, fellows, and those fellows tend to be paid, of course.
Steve, go ahead and maybe hop back in where we left off with your model. I think you froze on us.
Yes, and sorry about that, just connection issues. So the model pretty much what we try to do at Fordham is to really focus, maybe have a diverse approach of really engaging students into social innovation. So for me, social innovation and sustainability, you need the skills, you also need to understand the issues, and you also need to have some type of a metric. So what we do is our internship model is more like something we created. We created student teams, and those students teams work as consultants. So, you know, when you think about consultant, they have a project and they have a community partners, and some project have also a faculty presence that can really kind of provide the academic rigor. For example, let's look at financial inclusion. Luckily for us, we are located in New York City. We're in New York City, and our campus is in the Bronx. So the Bronx is actually the county with the lowest number of financial institutions and the highest number of alternative financial institutions, that is pawn shop and cash checking. So in terms of, you know, the organization of this county, we noticed that financial inclusion, access to banking is an issue. So now we have a team that actually partnered with a community developmental financial institution, CDFI, called Spring Bank, and we are trying to solve the financial inclusion in the Bronx. So this team that we developed within Fordham has about 15 students, and those 15 students would serve as consultants. And now we will identify 1 to 2 leaders that would be compensated based on applications, and those 2 leaders will serve as project management. So if you think about it, the internship is actually created within our institution, and then we try to kind of get them identified partners so they can work with those partners. And at the same time too, when we have those teams, we also have teams that will come and support them. For example, systems thinking, we have a team of students that really understand this process, and you can reach out to them to request a workshop. And again, that team has about 10 to 15 students, and we have always identified 2 or 3 leaders that are paid. So I guess for us at Fordham, our engagement is more like creating the opportunity within, and look for community partners, and look for also faculty to really kind of give them the academic rigor. And those teams will have a deliverable that are expected to be met, and a calendar, and all those things are discussed within the partners so that we are effectively following the academic calendar. So in a nutshell, that's really how we've organized the process here for them. And at the same time too, what I've also done is hired some students to really serve in the operation to really help me run the Collaborator. And those students are students that I've kind of identified from within those teams that really exhibit professionalism, leadership skills. And what I try to do is also give them the opportunity to really, test themselves into more of a administrative role within the Collaboratory. So this is really our program, and I'll stop here for now.
Great. So, feel free, the rest of these questions, whoever, maybe wants to kick it off or build off each other. It's great, very natural panel. Internships have been around for a while. Why are they still worth talking about? What is changing in the job market today that continues to make internships maybe even more relevant for students and employers?
I'll jump in first if that's okay, Alan. Yeah, I think the truth is internships, I think, are among the most powerful learning experiences that students have. In fact, I think the trend is that internships are even penetrating a campus experience. So because that work experience is so critical to really learning. Learning by experience is irreplaceably powerful. And so, I mean, like at BYU, at the Ballard Center, we send students out for internships, like I showed you with our funding program, but we also have a big on-campus internship program that happens where we partner again with the same organizations I showed you on our grant priorities list. But we do it on campus so students don't have to pay for travel, and they work in teams of 4 to 5 students, and we typically have about 100 students a semester engaged in those on-campus internship programs. I mean, this is, like I said, really uniquely powerful learning experience. I mean, I think back to when I was a summer intern in law school and did, you know, I did a summer at Green Foundation USA working with their general counsel. And I think I learned as much in that one summer as I feel like I almost did in 3 years of law school. I mean, it's like I took a contracts class, for example, but I learned how to actually write contracts that summer as an intern. And so I think the more of those experiences we can give students, the better. And I think what's critical as much as possible where available is providing funding to make those affordable. So for the students, I mean.
Yeah, so I'll try to add on to that. At Singapore Management University, you know, one of the things that all students have to go through is they have to complete something called a core curriculum. So the core curriculum is, it's a little bit unlike a Western liberal arts core curriculum that is designed to give you exposure to multiple subjects. We have a core curriculum that is designed to give people the capacity as well as the, you know, the understanding of the social issues, as well as the ethical and philosophical perspective to be a good maker of change. And, you know, anybody that goes through this particular core curriculum, you know, has the basic skills and expertise to be, let's say, a level 1 change maker. As part of this core curriculum, there are 3 capstones. So we have a competencies, which emphasizes math and reading and writing, critical thinking. And then we have like a civilizations that represents, or excuse me, it's communities, and that which represents the social issues, and then ethics is civilization. And each of these components has some sort of capstone requirement. And for capacities, it is actually the internship. And the other 2 would be global exposure as well as community service. So all students at SMU are required to complete an internship. So there's nothing negotiable about that. If you don't do it, you don't graduate. So our position as a university is that it is critical. This is an opportunity for you to not just learn basic skills like how to conduct yourself, how to write emails, how to communicate, but it's also an opportunity for you to apply the things that you have learned in school to a real life scenario. And it is also something that is used to build reflective thinking capacity. We are very much into reflective thinking, and you know, everything that you do, in addition, you know, not just the internship, you know, there's some reflective component, and we want students to be able to articulate, okay, you know, they should be able to recall that they went through a certain scenario, and then they should be able to think about what they learned from this, what were the skills that they built, how did they overcome a certain challenge, and they should be able to articulate that to a future employer. So we feel that the internship provides invaluable opportunities for student development, and it's a very important test in the SMU journey. Yeah.
Great. Sorry, my Zoom window disappeared for a minute there. And this is super helpful to understand everyone's kind of different models and unique ways they do this, especially having, you know, been a student myself very recently and had my own internship experiences in college. Similar goals with different ways to get there. Some of you talked about it a little bit already, but how do you, you know, connect classroom learning and internship experience for best student outcomes? We've heard a little bit about reflection and presenting. Is there anything that you've learned along the way in your programs that have, you know, guided how you do this process today?
So I can answer that question on behalf of SMU. So the university has 5 what we call graduate learning outcomes, or GLOs. Okay, so these 5 graduate learning outcomes are disciplinary and multidisciplinary knowledge, intellectual and creative skills, global citizenship, interpersonal skills, and personal mastery. So those are the 5 things that we expect students who graduate from our university to have when they come out. And reflection, as I said, is a very big part of our curriculum. So, you know, the community service has a reflection component, as well as the internships. So when students go through the internships, they have to declare, you know, some of their goals, and the goals are typically going to be tied to, let's say, three, usually not all five, but like three of these graduate learning outcomes. In addition, it is also tied to the classroom that we do have preparation work for internships. We do have the community service requirement where they would have, you know, some of that project-based experience, and we also have other project-based courses where we convert basic courses like statistics and make them into project learning experiences so people can see the value of the principles being taught. So we do have other parallel experiences that work similarly to the internship. So that's how I see everything relating to the classroom as part of the SMU journey.
I'll jump in on that question also, if that's okay. Most of the students that we support for internships financially have taken we have a class called Do Good Better. And it goes through design thinking, impact measurement, just some really kind of core perspectives to social impact. And so those students are most of the students who have had a funded internship have had that class experience. But in addition to that, BYU is pretty big, and we draw students from all across campus and all the different programs. And so most of the time when we're funding a student internship, the internship is somehow tied to their program of study. And so they're also bringing in the expertise from whatever field of study that they're pursuing.
And so for Fordham, the way the collaborator is designed is we think of it as a network of students, faculty, administrator, community partners. So everything that we try to do, we try to really have this like holistic approach. So, and then we also have a faculty advisory board, and Fordham is comprised of 9 schools. In each of those 9 schools, there's been a designated faculty that really sits in this advisory board. And the way we do is every student team that we have has to have some type of academic guidance from those faculty in a, not necessarily in a rudiment way, but more so in a advisory role. And what we also try to do is, while we start in the co-curricular space, we always want to get back to the curricular space. And when we start with one of these projects, the goal is to see what the learning objectives are and how that can be transitioned into the classroom. In fact, this past semester, we focused on sustainable finance, how finance can be really used as a tool for social changes. And that project that we did as a case study now is being integrated into the classroom next fall, and I'll be teaching it. So this is an example of where we see this co-curricular space as maybe like a trial base or laboratory, for lack of a better word, to then really integrate that into the classroom. And then of course, because we have deliverable, because we have also some set goals, I always try to say that let's distinguish ourselves from clubs. We want to make sure that we have an input, output, outcome, mission, and goal oriented. So every action we do, there's going to be something that we really want to get out of it. And those outcomes will really help us get to our goals. So this way, we can pretty much design it in a way where it's like having a lesson plan, having instructional objectives. So I guess maybe that's really where we see like the added value in the classroom.
Yeah, no, that's great. Again, we've touched on this a little bit, but want to make sure that in the name of social impact and change making, we call it out much more explicitly. But how do you, or maybe what are a couple of ways that you embed equity and inclusion in your internship programs? Since we've all kind of talked to those being very core principles to them. Let's open for anyone.
Yeah, so in the case of Singapore Management University, like I said, we have we fund two types of internships, one of which are the social enterprises, and then the second one is the social service organizations. And so that includes, certain vulnerable populations, such as at-risk youth, persons with disabilities, the elderly. It may include, migrant workers, so there are lots of opportunities for students to do internships with social service organizations and get some sort of perspective on equity.
I mean, for Fordham case, what I can definitely allude to is they need to really understand that this project is just complements the educational experience. And traditionally, it's always been within the classroom but we want to really add value and then create this experience outside the classroom. But sometimes we have students who probably do not really have the time or the opportunity because they actually have, they must work. They have to find a real job to really come to their need. Fordham it's an urban city. It's in an urban setting, so we do have commuters. So what I also try to do is identify students who, for example, can really take this as a job and then really pay them. Those are like the student fellows. But of course, this is depending on the funding that we have. So in terms of equity and inclusion, we really try to really have this holistic approach where, we're not really always attracting students who are motivated, but we'll also try to find those students who probably would benefit from this experience, but then have to actually make a decision between being member of the collaborator and working. So if we can bring them in, give them this opportunity to also get the best of both worlds, we do that. And so we try to do that to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what I'm going to say is going to echo what Alan and Sadibu said, but I think I would kind of want to riff on it just a little bit because I mean, one of the challenges I think of working in the social impact space is that what is considered social is spongy in a lot of people's minds. Like, where do you draw the line of what's social and what's not? I think that's one of the reasons that we prefer our students work with vetted organizations, because, if they've been evaluated by someone like Scholar or Ashoka and recognized as a top performer, then we have a higher trust that their social impact is stronger, meaning they're reaching the people that are facing the biggest inequities. And then I also just think, sending students out to internships, it's, the need for financial support is critical. And I mean, I realize we don't have all the money in the world, nobody does, to support this activity, but I think some of the biggest inequities come in this space with companies or other organizations creating unpaid internships as a model for staffing their intern roles. Because the problem is there are a bunch of students for whom that would never be accessible. They don't have the financial resources in their family or extended networks that could support them in doing those internships. And that's one of the reasons we tried to pay for these as much as we can afford them. Because otherwise there are a lot of students who would not have the same opportunities to grow professionally without that financial support. And so I think the question of equity is interesting from both perspectives: who's being helped by the organizations and the work of the interns, but also how do we make sure that the interns how the interns who wouldn't otherwise have the financial resources of getting those opportunities. And I think what Alan and Sadibu reflected both sides of that really well.
Yeah, that's kind of a great segue into our next question here. Kind of the golden ticket question that I'm sure we will all wish we had is, how do we get money for these programs? If folks on the line here wanted to, start doing this work, where would they even look for funding, or how would they get that? How did that work for you all?
Well, for us, I think this is I mean, especially in this time right now, it's going to be even more challenging. But Fordham has a really central body that really takes care of most of the funding issues, and And we started in the business school, and we are moving more into university-wide network within the university, especially when we joined Ashoka. There was this need to really make the collaboratory more exposed to all the 9 schools. So for us, funding, personally, as I'm currently the interim director, but I don't really have to do any of that. We want to actually be endowed, I guess, in some sense, because that's much more guaranteed, where you actually have, something within the university budget that's allocated. But the last 3 years, we actually had a donor, an alumni, who gave out $1 million, and we were able to kind of get started with that. But I think that for work as important as this one, I don't want to really make it rely on funding, but more so be involved into university endowment. So, every year we know that we have a guaranteed budget, and then anything else that we get in addition to that would be beneficial. So I don't know for other schools, but that's really what I'm trying to push for, to really make sure that we get the, the university endowment and get funding from there, as opposed to always, asking for external partners. And then the second thing is to also create the opportunity. And there are companies out there that really are looking for transformative opportunity. The landscape of social innovation and sustainability is changing. So all of a sudden now these metrics make sense to people, and they know that, they need to actually have those students who join this program with this mindset. So I guess, being alert and looking for those type of company to partner with them is also a source of revenue.
At Singapore Management University, when it comes to funding, we do take a multi-sector approach. So it's, people, so we work with, public, so the internships, it's a collaboration between the people sector, the education sector, as well as private and government. So this project wasn't started by me, but it was started by one of my colleagues. His name is Han. And he's the brainchild of this particular concept of funding social innovation funding internships related to social entrepreneurship, as well as social service organizations. And what he did was he went to our Office of Advancement, which is basically a fundraising office. And this is an office that has connections with lots of very wealthy foundations that have money that want to contribute to charitable causes. And it was through our Office of Advancement that we were able to secure funders like DBS Bank, as well as the Tan Ching Tuan Foundation. So there's a lot of big companies that are very they're very interested in contributing to worthy causes. And I think it is helpful if you have a resource in your university, if you have talent that's very good at searching for the money. I think that's very helpful. And then we focus on the design of the program and the experience for our interns.
So I hope it's okay. I'm going to tell a little story about what's happened at BYU over the last 2 years with funding, just because I think it's interesting in this context. So BYU, as many of you know, is sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known as the Mormon Church to most people. They already subsidize pretty dramatically the tuition costs of students here at the university. But about a year and a half ago, the church reached out to the university leadership and said that they wanted to increase their financial commitment, and did it pretty dramatically. And the resulting change was there were a bunch of staff and faculty positions that were either fully funded or partly funded by soft money, meaning donor money coming in. And the church essentially, the goal was to eliminate any donor money going to anything that wasn't directly that wasn't directed straight to students. So the new change has meant that any fundraising that happens at BYU through our advancement office now has to go, any fundraising has to go directly to student experiences. And what that means is there's no more fundraising for professorships or chairs. There's no more fundraising for full-time staff positions. All that stuff now is basically being covered by the church financially. And then and so now it's created an interesting shift, because now it means that anytime advancement is out there doing its work, you know, through there's a separate nonprofit called Philanthropies of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that does a lot of the fundraising for BYU. Now all of that has been redirected towards student experiences, and what it means is, I mean, it's sort of a change we've all been adjusting to in the way donors are being talked to, because a lot of it was student oriented, but not all of it. What's resulted now is, you know, basically we've got an apparatus that's way more hyper focused on creating student opportunities. I will say, you know, I think Todd Manwaring, who's the managing director of the Ballard Center, shared this story before, but when he was getting the Ballard Center started, he went to Philanthropies, like the equivalent of the advancement office that Alan was talking about. And he went to Philanthropies and said, hey, are there any large donors that you've struggled to work with? Are there any that you keep bringing them ideas or projects and nothing seems to quite connect? And they were happy to give him a list of those people. And then Todd went to those people pitching social innovation and social impact. And it was the thing that resonated with some key donors that never quite connected with BYU on the projects that have been proposed. It's actually how he landed two of our largest donors that have funded our endowments, and because social impact resonated in a way with them that nothing else that had been offered before resonated. And I just thought that was I mean, you know, obviously in retrospect, it's easy to say it worked out great. But the point is, I think going to what Alan was saying, is that more and more people, and Saudi was saying this too, more and more people are interested in engaging with this kind of thing. We at Wells Fargo Bank has a philanthropy program here in the state of Utah, and they just gave us some money for our Social Venture Academy. And it was because they have been looking for this entrepreneurship opportunity that had social impact, and we were a resource for that. So I think the opportunities are growing, but you got to get out and ask, and you got to talk to the people, and you got to network. And so whether you do it through an office of skilled people like Alan is talking about, or, you know, maybe at your university, you got to pull the weight yourself. But there are more and more people out there who want to fund student experiences in this kind of work.
Yeah, that is great. That story really speaks to, you know, why we're all here today, that this really is something that many people can get behind and believe in. We have a couple questions coming in from participants here tuning in with only a few minutes left. So I will read these off. Do any of you put teams of multidisciplinary students into the community as opposed to just individual students?
We do it mostly through our multidisciplinary students are done. That work is mostly done through our on-campus internship program. So we take a partner, and then we pull a team of students from 3 or 4 or 5 different majors. So we don't typically send multidisciplinary teams out. It has happened in the past, but it's not common.
And for us at Fordham, actually every team has a multidisciplinary approach, because when we advertise the Collaborator and we advertise this project, anyone who wants to join can join. So, and the beauty of it is you will have students, not only who are undergraduate students working on a project, but you also have graduate students, business school, law school, sociology. And then all of a sudden, you have this mix of diverse, interdisciplinary from undergrad and graduate working in the same project. So all the teams that we have actually have a multidisciplinary approach.
So at Singapore Management University, what we typically do is we go out and we meet a lot of the social service or the social enterprises, determine what are the types of jobs that they need, where do they need help and resources, and we help them to craft the JD and then post it onto a student server, and students will apply for these particular positions. So it often is going to depend on, if there's a fit between, what the student's major and their skill set is and what the organization needs. So there are some organizations that will, that may hire individuals with different skill sets, and there are other organizations that need, maybe they may just take one person to do communications and marketing. So it really depends on the needs. So the one organization may hire somebody to do a marketing student to do some fundraising or marketing work, and then another person who's in the social sciences may do some sort of impact research on to help them to make sure they're complying with all the B Corp rules, so that the organization remains a B Corp, and so it depends on so it depends on a lot of things, but that's it.
Yeah, from my experience too, just briefly, in high school and both in college, the schools I went to had kind of an approach to underclassmen at both. We're in like multidisciplinary teams to kind of break that, traditional American education model of just, sit and get learning. So even like as a freshman and sophomore, both in high school and in college, we had social impact, like local organizations, working with like, our marketing class or in a public relations course to build, plans and pitch them ideas and campaigns as well, before students, got sent out one-on-one to get this kind of, soft skills and individual experiences. So it definitely sounds like there's lots of hybrids to this. One more question here from Marissa. How do you prepare your students to accurately understand the value that these, required or non-required internships add to their education resume? And how do they share that with getting into jobs, grad school, et cetera?
I'll chime in that. That's a very good question. I think for me, what I really tell them is that when you graduate and when you are in front of a potential employer interviewing you, the thing that you also need to know is that what is your story? I think we all have a story. And so what I'm going to share this slide here. This is one of our team called the Resettle Students. So this team worked to maybe end over 150 years rule of Fordham University. Fordham has existed for over 200 years. And up until last year, Fordham used to not offer health care to students who are asylum seekers. In fact, they had no status within the university. They were not international students. They were also not Americans, and they were also not permanent residents. They just had no status. So this group of students really worked for a whole year, did a campaign, and what ended up happening is that the university now offers healthcare to any students. So imagine you are in front of an interview and you share this story. What someone will really think about is that, oh, here's a student who's motivated, who's really entrepreneurial, who is able to really go within an organization and change the way they do things in a positive way. So I think that aside from the GPA, aside from also the lovely resume, it's the ability to be able to tell a story that you experience based on this engagement outside the classroom, that kind of give you the opportunity to grow intellectually, to grow also professionally, and also to grow in a social context. I think these are something that I personally try to infuse these students to be mindful of as they undergo this internship opportunity within our organization. Thank you.
So at Singapore Management University, I guess we get two types of students of different mindsets. One of these mindsets is, is a very traditional mindset for people who grow up in Singapore. There is this expectation that you get an education, you get good grades, and then you graduate, and then you get a corporate job. So we have to think about people with that mindset. And then there's also, and bear in mind also the internship is required. And we have students that come into this and they want to be paid and they want to do an internship, but they don't necessarily know what they do. So there, and at our university, there is, we have a lot of students that have very limited exposure to issues related to social innovation and social entrepreneurship and the social sector. We are primarily a business school with like social science and law, accounting, and information science, but we don't really have a school of social work, for example. So we have to prepare people to, we have orientations where we invite, organizations like RAISE, which is an organization that helps people to become entrepreneurs, give talks. We have the government come in and give talks. We have the funders, to help educate and prepare the students that are in this program to work. They have to have some sort of familiarity with the social sector and with social enterprises and how these organizations work and the types of things that they do. So we do have some sort of orientation, as well as master classes throughout the duration of the internship to help skill up and boost the understanding of students that are in our programs.
I think this is something a lot of programs at BYU could be better at. Is training their students how to communicate or translate their internships into interviews, resumes, cover letters, and so forth. At the Ballard Center, we do a storytelling competition once a year where we invite students to tell their Ballard Center story. Similar to what Sadibu was describing, how important it is to be able to tell your story. I tell students all the time that their career is going to be built on the contributions that they make rather than just sort of like punching the clock every day. I mean, the way every career grows is by being able to say, I did this, I did that, this organization didn't have this improvement, I made this improvement, and this was the result. And I think that's a really critical skill professionally all the way until you retire, honestly. It's not just translating internship experience, but I think all of us to grow professionally need to have ways to look at our job, see how we can make a permanent improvement, and then find a way to talk about that, when we have the next step in front of us. So it's a great question. And I think Marissa is one of our graduates. And so I think maybe she knows how well it works in some places and not others at BYU.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question.
Yeah. So the time is 12, but I wanted to give the three of you an opportunity, if you had any closing thoughts or things we didn't get to share, maybe one piece of advice to folks that are on the chat today. Or something you maybe wish someone would have told you going into this job about, social innovation or, leading internship programs.
Well, I mean, I do have something to say, but not necessarily internship, but more so, the type of mindset. Right now we all know that we are facing with this COVID-19 situation, and I think that higher education institution, have always contributed to the public good and producing knowledge and supporting research. So, they've been the beacon of light to for many centuries. And in fact, the oldest institution that have kind of stood up for over 300-400 years have been, universities, aside from the church, of course. So now I guess in this time of uncertainty, I think not only high institutions have a role to play, but I think social innovation, this whole field that we are, the need for creativity, the need to think outside the box. You know, people are scared. People do not know what's going to happen. So I think, you know, creativity is going to be a solution, and working together, collaboration. So these are like values that I guess we try to instill in our students. I'm really happy of how, for example, some of the students within our university, within the collaboratory, have been meeting. They came up with the COVID-19 for the university task force. So all these great initiative, I think, you know, before that I used to work for the World Bank. So coming in this new setting, which is totally different, I see the creativity, the innovation, thinking outside the box. So this is, in this time of crisis, it's really comforting to see that. So I just wanted to share this.
Yeah, and to kind of echo some of what Sadi was saying, I think the most valuable contribution that education makes is giving students vision of what is possible for them. I think so many students don't realize what their capacity is until they have an opportunity to explore that, where you point the way and you put them in places where they get to extend themselves in ways that they didn't think possible. I think most of us in our education experiences can point to moments when our view of ourselves expanded dramatically. And I think that's what all of these things are. I think this is what this stuff does best, especially internship experiences. And I think that's what we need to be doing more than anything else, is giving students a vision of what they're capable of.
And yeah, and I think in light of COVID-19, I think one of the most important, I think COVID-19 highlights a lot of things that we need to do in this world. But I think one of them is to be adaptable, be able to adapt. We do have an incoming batch of summer interns. The COVID-19 isn't stopping the internships. The internships are going to continue to go on. They will be virtual working arrangements, but we're still going to have them. And so this is an opportunity for students to be adaptable, to try things. And it's not just, we have this magical illusion where we think, okay, I give you a magic wand, I give you everything, and then boom, you can be successful. No, it's about learning how to learning a solution, learning your way through a problem, and being able to solve a problem where there was no known answer at the beginning. And that is, I think, the sweet spot for the internship. It's an opportunity to solve a problem, to try something out, to test somebody, to test everything that they know, and also at the same time, contribute to society and the betterment of the community. It's a very powerful experience, and I'm very excited to have had the opportunity to share my thoughts today. Thanks.
Great. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up really well. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today and joining us. Everyone's contact information is in the program for further research of their programs, their websites, their contact information. I'm sure everyone's happy to collaborate and continue conversations afterwards here as well. If you did not get a chance to ask a question. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and being flexible and joining with us virtually here.